Welcome to ABA on Tap, where our goal is to find the best recipe to brew the smoothest, coldest, and best tasting ABA around. I'm Dan Lowry with Mike Rubio, and join us on our journey as we look back into the ingredients to form the best concoction of ABA on tap. In this podcast, we will talk about the history of the ABA brew, how much to consume to achieve the optimum buzz while not getting too drunk, and the recommended pairings to bring to the table. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and always analyze responsibly.
All right. Welcome back to ABA on Tap. I am your grateful co-host, Mike Rubio, and this is part 2 of our interview with Mallory Quinn. Enjoy.
It's interesting. Another one of my favorite anecdotal stories is my first publication that's in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis. I submitted it, and I remember, reviewer 2, you always have reviewer 2 who's like,
yeah,
they're reviewer 2, So
don't be reviewer 2. Okay.
That's good for a shirt. Don't be reviewer 2. I like that.
I love it. But I remember they, and Dr. Miltenberger laughed about this at the time too. They said something about how my language was very colloquial. They were like, this is so colloquial, the way you speak. And Miltenberger and I laughed about it forever. But what's so funny is I have had so many people, and this is not to toot a horn or anything like that, but so many people who've worked with me have said the way that you explain things is the first time I understand them. You talk like a regular person. So that's just an example right there of reviewer 2 was you're speaking too colloquially. I don't know if that's a word, but
yes, I think it is.
But then I have people now, again, my authenticity, people love working with me because I speak that way. And I feel like I reach more clients because I speak that way. And it's been almost like a hallmark of the type of behavior analyst I am. So
will you speak a little bit at how you address that reviewer? Because that's somebody that can be a thorn in your side and really compel you to start editing things. And then all of a sudden your writing isn't yours. And we see a similar thing with the way we write goals and being a little too innovative. And this past week we paid the price for being a little too innovative and not writing goals in the way that other people might. How did you handle that, reviewer? What did you end up doing? It sounds like you end up prevailing and keeping your language, but I mean, that had to be quite a back and forth. Okay, a little bit.
Yeah, we edited the article, but I think it was still in my language because multiple people after the article was published reached out and said they liked that it was written that way. Again, this was the times before ChatGPT. So our writing was actually our writing.
Plus, ABAI is probably going to be consumed with some more scientific or more people in the field. A parent's probably not going to pick up the journals that you wrote, so I guess it would make sense.
Yeah, I guess my point is that a lot of the things that kind of made me a not ideal grad student or not ideal BCBA have allowed me to flourish in business and in life, and really leaning into those things and being this is just who I am. This is who I am. And I spent so many years of my life trying to fit myself into this mold that I wasn't, to try to prove that I was actually an intelligent person and I am smart and I am these things. And it's that was just such a waste of time. So I think that again, back to that authenticity, when you do practice authentically and you give yourself permission, again, within reason, right? You don't go crazy or be unprofessional, but when you give yourself permission to be authentic and connect with people in that way, and it doesn't always have to be so rigid, and doesn't, like you guys were saying, we know these things work, so just use the things in your work. It doesn't have to be this crazy strict way. And if you want to practice that way, that's cool. That's again, my ABA can look a little bit different than your ABA.
For sure.
That's fine.
Sounds like you're doing values-based stuff with yourself, right? Saying that these are the things that I value and this is what's important to me. And just because it's not important to someone else, which actually is interesting because in ProAct, we talk about cultural humility and cultural competency. And cultural humility is understanding that your culture isn't necessarily the right way to do things. There's other ways of doing things. And it sounds like that in ABA, maybe we haven't done a lot of cultural humility because there are other ways of communicating things to people. And by saying this is the only way you can communicate it in this technological term, which in some ways is almost a violation of technological, the dimension of ABA is like lacking cultural humility, understanding that people do things very, very differently. You also made me think about when I think there's like an arrogance with ABA, and it comes maybe from the scientific piece. So it's ABA is an art and a science, right? And I think people say it's the science of behavior, but Skinner never said that, right? He said it was the philosophy of the science of behavior. Yeah. And there's the philosophy, right? So at the end of the day, we can all have a really good understanding as scientifically as we want. And I think it comes from this, there's a right and wrong with science, which is true, right? Like there's that concreteness, but that's not ABA. ABA is the philosophy of that. So at the end of the day, we're all taking these concepts, but we're philosophizing on them. We're taking them and we're trying to make the best. There's that art piece that so much gets lost, like you're saying with these conferences and things like that, of yes, we might understand the science so well, but at the end of the day, we still have to implement it, whether it's with dance, whether it's with a child with autism, whether it's with somebody with an addiction issue. Like you're not just doing it in a lab. Yeah. That philosophy piece.
And I wonder if I can't really speak on other fields, but I wonder if other fields maybe are better at doing that than we are. And that's why our field has the perception that it has.
Yeah. Very, very rigid. So. Do you work with, in the dance, do you work primarily, portionally, or not really with individuals with autism?
Yeah, we do. So we have quite a few kids with autism. We have additional services to integrate them and include them in classes. If that's not a possibility and they do one-on-ones, or a lot of times they do one-on-ones in addition to classes, we offer that service as well. Again, like without giving too much away of my business model, we have different service offerings, things like where we work on gross motor coordination and different ABA targets in sessions. I've written a couple curriculums around this, which is in my online school. So if someone does want to learn more about, like, I've done some presentations on integrating movement into like DTT sessions and integrating movement into clinical spaces. So we have presentations on that. We have curricula on that. People can access that as well.
So it's not just kids with autism or whatever, people with autism. No. You work with all sorts of different individuals.
Yeah. Kids with autism is just a small portion of our business. And to be honest, the reason that it is a portion of our business is when I started my dance studio, so many parents of children with autism who are interested in dance and yoga like reached out because they already knew ABA and they loved ABA. So it was a very easy sell. Like they were already like, ooh, another integration, and they were excited about it. So I actually didn't even plan on that being a part of my business, but it was just, again, the parents were so excited about it that it has become a part and evolved to be a significant part of the business. I would say probably like 30% of our business or clients there. Okay. Yeah.
So you started with ABA dance without autism. Can you speak to that? Because again, we really appreciate that insight. Again, ABA and autism somehow got linked, and it's like now it's hard to separate them. Can you talk about maybe how you marketed to people? Because ABA also has a kind of tarnished reputation in a lot of circles as well. That might get people to be like, oh, no, I don't want people going to Dr. Matt. She does ABA. That's that mean stuff people do with autism. So can you maybe talk about ABA and dance, how you marketed it? Like, yeah.
I marketed it a lot through like my connections in the dance world, which I think is another issue with people opening businesses in ABA outside. Not an issue, but you're going to have a really difficult time getting profit and marketing if you are not in that world already. Sorry, I keep talking about Dr. Miltenberger. Just, love him. He was my mentor.
Shout out to Dr. Miltenberger.
Yeah. Something he used to say in graduate school, because I always got my research done super quick. Like people would be on these sites. Oh, this site gave up on me. This person dropped out. This person did that. And he used to say, he was like, you always get your studies done so fast because you have these connections with people in the community. Like I would work at this one dance studio and then use a different teacher that worked there for something, or I'd do a performing contract. I danced in a show with this other person and I'm doing, so I always had these like really good like community connections, and he saw that and acknowledged that. And I think like that's a big thing that makes a difference when you're starting a business in an area. I always preach this to BCBAs that I work with that are starting businesses, is don't feel like something's like above you position wise. Like if you're trying to start a business and ABA and personal training, you need to go work as a personal trainer. You need to teach group fitness. You need to like get in with those people. And if you're not doing that, you're going to have an incredibly hard time building something and marketing something. When I first opened my business, I taught every single class on the schedule. I like you guys are like, how'd you get ABA clients? I just got people in the door. Like I got dancers in the door. And then I was like, oh, you're struggling with this. I have a service for you. Your child's having issues with the teacher saying no in class, and I have a service for that, right? You have to get, it's funnels. Like in business, you have to look at funnels and how you're getting them in the door. And that bottom of the funnel, that client that's paying you whatever high ticket hourly amount they're paying you, they came from the funnel where you just brought everybody in. So my answer to that is like, you have to have services that bring everybody in, and then you can funnel to the ones that really need specific assistance with something.
And you may not have had all those funnels identified then. You brought everybody in time. And then you had to actually create some funnels at times.
Yes.
That's a really good point.
It takes time. It takes a lot of trial and error. Again, this is another conversation I have all the time in business coaching, is people see my business and they're like, oh, they expect that they're going to have that business in like a year. And I'm like, this took 10 years. 10 damn years to get to like where I'm at. Like it takes a long time. And these things have to be refined. They have to be adjusted. You see like, oh, this type of client, I call them avatars. Like this client avatar is interested in these kinds of services, and this person you can funnel over here. And like an example is like early on, I had a yoga studio and I got like a kids yoga certification. And we also had trampoline cardio classes, and the kids love the trampolines. And I was like, oh, we're going to make a yoga bounce class, right? So we're going to have the kids bounce on trampoline and do cardio, and then they're going to do yoga and mindfulness. I cannot even tell you how many ADHD kids I got in this class, how many kids with autism I got in this class, right? Who were really vibing with the sensory of the bouncing on the trampolines, and they learned to meditate. I had kids with Down syndrome. I had so many different types of kids come in the door for this class. And then I got tons of kids signed up for services like just from that class. And there's been other types of classes that I've tried that I'm like, oh, this class is incredible, and nobody signs up for it. So you have to know how to pivot, how to adapt. People ask me too, they're like, where do you think you use ABA the most? And I'm like, honestly, like with my staff, like leading the staff is like, that's where I feel like I use ABA more than anything. So yeah.
Well, that's because you're a business owner. Like when you get a little bit moved farther away for sure. But I want to reflect back on my question. So the dance studios that you had, did you just open up a dance studio and people came in, or did you open up the dance studio as an ABA dance studio? Yeah.
So again, things are a slow transition. I took over a failing yoga studio. They were failing, they were bleeding money. So I got a really good price, and I basically moved in, got all their stuff. And then I rebranded. So I had the fitness classes, and then I slowly started doing group classes and dance at the fitness studio. And I slowly started adding ABA private lessons. And then a space opened up next door, and my landlord reached out to me about it. And this was like during COVID. And I was like, I'm not signing a lease during COVID. And he was like, well, what if I give you like 6 months free and a build out? And I was like,
good
all right.
Sold, buddy.
So yeah. So I ended up, that was 6 years ago. And that's when we really branded as like, this is an ABA based dance studio. We're going to have a full schedule of group classes and all the things plus the ABA. And then again, back to pivoting, I slowly started moving out of the fitness studios. I ended up selling. I actually had another location of the fitness studio. I sold one of them. And then the other one, my dance studio just moved in. It just took over. But again, back to the mindset stuff we were talking about. If I was in that very like rigid ABA mindset, I would have just, and this is how I was in the beginning, I would have just kept pushing the fitness studio and pushing the fitness studio of like, oh, I just need to put more money or more time or more whatever because I don't want to be seen as a failure, because that was my mindset before. And now my mindset is like, no, I learned so much from that business that's why my business now, the one I really care about and is values aligned, is so successful, because I learned everything from that other business. So again, it's all that mindset work.
What a risk. That's incredible. So you bought a failing location.
Yeah.
And then essentially did the same thing. That is remarkable. You clearly had a grip on how to rebrand. I think that was, likely huge. But I mean, that's an exceptional risk you took. Like, hey, this same service in this location is failing. I'm going to do the same thing here.
Yeah, we added a bunch of stuff and we made it more. Yeah. But I learned a lot of that just from working for small businesses. So again, back to like not stuff you learn in grad school. They don't teach you how, and again, no shade, like they're teaching you to work for places that are funded, universities, insurance companies, those kinds of things. But you don't learn how to build a business or how to do that day-to-day kind of thing. So I learned a lot of that from working as a Pure Barre fitness instructor at Pure Barres for a long time, or I worked as a dance instructor at many different dance studios, and I saw things that I liked and things that I didn't like, and that's how you learn. So
Barre, that's perfect for ABA. That stuff is hard, man. That stuff is really hard.
That's a good point. I mean, we've been in the field for so long, and it makes me think about, like, was it Knocked Up or one of the movies where it's like, gotta date sixes before you get to the 10. Like, you gotta be in a lot of sixes with some companies before to create the 10. Like, a lot of the newer BCBAs think they know, but it's like, you don't know. We've learned so much of good and bad from all of our experiences. And I mean, a lot of them, what resonates is like, oh, I'm never gonna do that, which is a very, very valuable learning experience.
It made me think of a CEU. We might have to partner with Dr. Mallory, but nobody, I don't know that I've seen that. A course or a CEU on how to explain ABA to the common person. I mean,
Kendall's book is on that, right?
Well, she's got the thesaurus. So Kendall Rindeck Samuel has a thesaurus of terms, which I guess goes for that. But yeah, I think that you make a really good point. So how do you advertise the ABA, or how does that fit into your marketing that then sets you apart from every other dance studios? We recently had a guest on who's gone the other way with autism treatment and doesn't actually advertise the behavior analysis because of the state of the field. Even when she hires RBT, she does get them RBT certified, but she doesn't list that she's hiring for RBT. She calls them like learning specialists or something. And then once they come in the door, then she's like, hey, I'm going to teach you the way you're going to do the learning specialist role.
I think that's really smart. How do you hire the right person and give them the training?
And that's kind of what you're doing, is you're finding the person that can do the job, and then you're training them on the ABA as they need after that.
Yeah, and I think my answer to your question, the thought that came up, is I try to show it rather than tell it. So I think, like, in our social media, the things that we post, the things that we share, the language that we use, the tone that we use, people get the vibe right away that we're different. And again, like, they gravitate to us. I really don't post too much about the ABA stuff that I do. I do on my consulting page a little bit more because of, again, the nature of my marketing there. I'm trying to show other behavior analysts, like, hey guys, this is what I do day to day. So I talk about it a lot more there. But on my dance studio page, we don't really talk much about ABA. It's really just about the dancing, about the kids. And then a lot of times people are like, what is ABA, or what does ABASI stand for? And then I explain it to them and they're like, oh, that's really cool. But again, it's like more so like that funnel model of, we get people in that vibe with us because of the presence that we put out there. Like, a specific example is like, last week I made a post of like why we don't compete. And I made a little carousel post on our dance studio page of like, these are the reasons that we don't compete. And I went over like a little bit of research and a little bit of like this was my work in grad school. And like, most of those people don't even know that about me. Like they're not even there for that reason, you know?
What page, when you say page, are you talking LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram?
Oh yeah. So I have a couple, my personal Instagram, if you guys want to follow me, is Mallory_ABA Dance Doctor. And then I have my dance studio Instagram is ABASI Dance Lab. Okay. And then my consulting company is ABA Sports Innovations. So those are all the different pages.
And we're going to have you recap that again in about 20 minutes. So don't lose whatever reference.
And we'll put it in the link.
And we'll put it in the link just to make sure people can find you.
Yeah, but again, I think like a lot of companies, they're so focused on marketing ABA, and like I just keep seeing these like new companies pop up, and all the posts are like, this is what ABA is, and like, how do you use ABA with lifting a weight, and how do you use ABA? And it's like, it's too much. Like people don't even... They don't care. Like they just want to see like the change and have a good vibe and see, you know, and you can still practice ABA and do all those things. It's just, you know.
Well, you also did say earlier something about DTT and movement, which I think is completely erroneous. You
down with DTT?
You can't have kids move if they're doing DTT. They have to sit, right?
Oh, that's true. In the IKEA chair.
I know. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
You could do an obstacle course with little
Dr.
stuffed
Quinn,
animals.
You're
no,
going
they have
way
to be
off
in a
the
chair.
mark here, Dr. Quinn.
Anything in the room. The parent can't be in the room.
Stuffed animal on the obstacle course.
Right. The parent can't be in the room. It's got to be an isolated portion of their house. So we come
and
from
you need
that.
Cards.
All right. Lamination is very important. We come from that tradition. We make a lot of fun of that stuff. Wait. So kids don't have to sit while you're doing discrete trial? You mean the trial itself is the important part? They can move around? Wow. But we're being facetious, maybe a little too much. Unfortunately, we see colleagues out in the field that are still in that mindset. And it's like, no, man, like the trial is the important part. The table and the chair were just one example of how this goes. Right. Yeah, geez.
So, question. So back in your origin story, I think you said when you went into grad school, I think I might have quoted you correctly or wrong. You can correct me if I quoted you wrong, but you said, I learned how to do more scientific dance.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Speak to that.
Ooh, yeah. That's such a good question. So, for example, dance therapy or art therapy, and I could be saying this wrong because those aren't my fields, but my understanding of it is the act of engaging in the activity itself is the therapy. The difference, or how I explain to people of how we do ours in one-to-one session, is we integrate dance and we integrate yoga as like tools, right, during the session. So again, like we just touched upon, like maybe we're working on labeling animals and they do an obstacle course and they pick up the stuffed animal and they label the animal. Or maybe we're teaching them breath work. We're teaching a child breath work through yoga for emotional regulation when they're having a tantrum. But just doing yoga with the child isn't the therapy itself. That is used as like a tool or maybe a reinforcing activity during session, those kinds of things. So it just looks a little bit different in that way. But again, this is me being crunchy and loving other things. I love learning about like somatic movement, and I do integrate some like somatic movement things into my session as well. So maybe I have a dancer who is struggling with present moment awareness, right? She has anxiety. She's always thinking about the past, ruminating about the past, worrying about the future, those kinds of things. Maybe I do integrate a little bit of somatic work where we play a song and we move through the emotion and we take pauses and we do breath work and those kinds of things, in addition to those classic ABA strategies or act work that I'm using with her.
I love this. You just mentioned emotion and ABA in the same sentence, and those are historically diametrically opposed. Will you talk about how you define emotion for your students, or how you talk about it? That's really interesting because I think it's something that we miss a lot of, because the idea of memory or emotion, anxiety, we've been talking about this throughout this conversation. Those are really hard things for applied behavior analysts to quantify, and a lot of people get really tripped up on that, to the point where you can't have that conversation, but you're having it successfully and with good outcomes based on what you want to do for your students. So, what is emotion?
And I'm sure, Yeah, I'm sure people are going to be there's going to be some people that might be very upset with things that I'm saying. And again,
that's an emotion, though.
That's okay. Yeah, your feelings are valid. Person that's upset right now.
So they're going to get emotional about you.
They're going to get emotional about you saying that emotions are part of behavior. Wait a minute. This is crazy.
Your feelings are valid. No, so something that I learned a lot outside of graduate school, and again through like my own kind of woo-woo training in 500 hours.
I want
like
woo-woo training.
Woo-woo training. We need that.
I need some woo-woo training.
The 500 hours of yoga teacher training I did, and all the podcasts I listened to and books I read of like holistic things. The mind affects the body, and the body affects the mind.
Perfect.
And there's such a like huge connection there that isn't really talked about in graduate school, which again, no shade. They only have a certain amount of time. They got to get you to pass the exam. That's not a focus, right? No shade to any graduate programs, but that is a huge thing that is missing in our education and in our work with clients. And like, for example, when I work with supervisees, the first book that we read in conjunction with ABA textbooks is The Body Keeps the Score. So we read about how body affects mind, how mind affects body, things like breath work. A lot of times people are like, well, what's the point of breath work? Like, I'm not going to sit here and relax when I'm having a tantrum. That statement means that you don't understand breath work, because what breath work does is it literally, I'm not a medical doctor, so don't misquote me.
Go for it.
I was waiting for a bad pun there, Mike.
There's a mechanism when you turn on your parasympathetic nervous system, right? Yeah. You turn on this nervous system, you activate your vagus nerve, you do all these things. It literally tells your mind to calm down. So even when your mind is spinning or whatever's going on, if you can regulate your body, you can also regulate your mind. And there's this connection there that ABA just completely standard ABA just completely ignores or overlooks, or even things like food.
Yeah.
Like a child's diet greatly affects their behavior. So like I've had, again, people are going to get angry about this, and that's fine. But I've had clients who, like, the parents are like, oh my gosh, out of nowhere, like, they're depressed and we're getting them on antidepressants and all these things. And again, I'm not a nutritionist, but I'll be like, what is your child like eating? Oh, they eat McDonald's once a day. Does your child get sunlight? No. Does your child go on walks? No. Your child used to be a figure skater and now they're not figure skating anymore. What are they doing after school? Oh, they're going into their dark room and they're on social media. Okay, well, there's tons of research on social media effects on teen, like all these things. And these all play a role. Like I can write a behavior intervention plan on like, I don't know, random things. But like, if you're not looking at all these other things, it's like you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah. So many of these, and you mentioned a couple of them, like optic flow and sunlight, which I think is really important. And there's these simple things that we can engage in. I guess maybe because in ABA, we're used to prompting the desired behavior, or we have to see it happen. So the idea that I'm just going to go out in the morning and get 10 minutes of sun on my face and in my eyes, we don't necessarily see the effect right afterwards. So I don't know if that leads to some of the skepticism. As far as the diets are concerned, it's so interesting because historically, I think we're caught in this denying the empirical validation of GF-CF diets toward some cure of autism. So we're going to deny that. And we kind of got stuck there, to your point. Like all of a sudden, we're not going to consider food outside of edible reinforcement because, of course, that's not going to have any effect or collateral effect on your behavior. Of course it does. In fact, if anything, if I work with young clients and there's eating or sleeping concerns, we're going to start there. I don't care about anything else.
It affects your nervous system over time. Those things are cumulative over time. Yeah. So it builds up and it manifests and it shows up in different ways. And okay, another controversial statement. I think people in our field don't understand the connection because they're not making the connection in their own life. They're not going out in the morning and getting sunlight. They're not eating a certain way. They're not self-caring. They're not engaged in their fitness. And that's why they don't see because again, it's not even a debate. There's so much research on it.
Yeah.
It's not a question.
Sure.
It's scientific, just like our stuff is scientific, but they don't see that because they're not using it in their own lives. Because I didn't see it till I used it in my own life, and they were like, oh, hey, like your lupus is in remission. We don't know how this happened, but it is. Or like, you know, I didn't change anything about my diet, but I look completely different because I am getting 10 minutes of sunlight in the morning, or my work productivity is completely different, all these things. So I think that's a huge piece, is like behavior analysts don't see it because they don't practice it. And that's a huge problem in the field. Like, we're teaching kids emotional regulation and we're not emotionally regulating ourselves. So like, that's weird.
I think there's also, I think there's a whole lot of validity in what you're saying. I'm going to give a slightly alternative take, that I think that maybe one of the reasons that a lot of people in our field don't maybe prescribe to that is because a lot of times when it's come out, like I remember when the GFCF diet, right? Jenny McCarthy came out, was this cures autism, or these things come out and people take it to the far extreme and they're like, this cures autism. And now we're thinking, okay, now we're going to be out of a job. As a result of that. And number one, I don't even know what cures autism. I don't know what that statement means, but that's how it's presented. And I think sometimes people take these things too far to now they're not valid anymore. But there's a middle ground. It's so true. Like, yes, a lot of these things may have a huge impact into autism. And the GI system has, I mean, we're learning now how that's like the second brain. So that's kind of my thought, is that I think what you're saying is true. And I also think that sometimes people have these anecdotal statements. Medication would be another one. You know, parents will say like, oh, my child started taking this, like risperidone or something like that. And now they're talking all the time. And now they can do their math. And it's like, well, risperidone, I don't think is teaching your child to do math. There might be an effect with that. So I think sometimes it's these over extreme ideas that then make people on the other side get defensive and then leave us in this like very politicized no-win situation where both are probably true. That's my two
It's these
cents.
single attributions, right? I've got to tell my Apple story. You just mentioned it. So this idea that, you know, I've got a client and the target's Apple. We're going to teach them to identify and say Apple, and we work on it, and we're presenting the flashcards, and we're eating apples at snack. And then the kid starts their ADHD medication. The next day they say Apple, and the parent goes, oh my God, look what the medication did. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. We've been working on that for like 4 weeks. You think that this little pill, they put it in their mouth, and then immediately Apple is what the effect was? Are you sure that was the medical, the therapeutic effect of this stimulant? Because we've been working on Apple for 3 weeks. I guess it's single attributions that get made, to your point.
On
and
both
that's
sides.
Because, on both sides.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. And yeah, the extreme is definitely a big issue, but I feel like there's also so much power. And if you are like a highly educated person, like in science or in our field, and then you also can say like, but I also understand and what word am I looking for? I understand and I identify the value of like these other things as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect?
The who?
The Dunning-Kruger effect?
No.
So look it up. Basically, it's an effect that shows that when people start with like no knowledge or information about something, and then when people start to get a little bit of information about something, they think they know everything about it. And then actually the more information you get about it, the more you realize you don't know. So you'll see like this parabolic knowledge drop. And
that's cool.
That's what BCBAs, right? The more you realize like you don't know everything, the more you're in the field, the more knowledge you get, the more you realize, wait, I don't know everything. I don't know anything about dance. I don't know much about diet. I don't know much about sleep. I know about reinforcement, but like, let's collaborate. We don't know everything. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. So I think the more people that are longer in the field, I know we've learned so much from the podcast and parents, the people we're supposed to be giving the treatment to, we learned so much about. Like, I totally agree with what you're saying about that collaborative piece is so important.
They're going to rename that to the TikTok effect, I think.
Why is that?
That's where you learn. That's where everybody knows and learns everything now, right? TikTok.
We were just talking about that yesterday with the teenage dancers. We have such a problem with them, like thinking they know everything or being like, "Oh, we don't need to learn any more from you." And we're like, "It's the TikTok." Like they see things on TikTok and they're like, "I don't need my teacher."
Man, never have we had more access to information and utilized it so poorly. Like never in the history of mankind have we had so much access to information yet.
Well, without being political, like COVID showed that you have an abundance of information, but you don't know you get
What to
two
do with it.
diametrically opposed stories about the same, whether it's vaccine or whatever. And
my
now you're
goodness.
introducing AI, so you don't even know it's true anymore.
Everyone has their lens that they receive the information through.
I want to go back though. Your dissertation. You talked about manipulating antecedents and consequences within dance. I think you just gave kind of like a quick one as you told your story, but can you speak more to your dissertation and kind of what it was, what you learned from it? I'm sure there's a lot of interesting stuff from that.
Sure. Sorry, I've just like compartmentalized that to the back of my mind.
Oh, we don't have to talk about it if you don't want.
No, it's cool. So during the time that I was in graduate school, I did research on a couple of different procedures within dance. So kind of under this umbrella of like behavioral coaching, right? So things like tag teach or acoustical feedback. We did peer acoustical feedback. We did video modeling and video feedback, and we also did public posting and graphical feedback as like a motivational strategy as well. So for my dissertation, I put all of those into a manual called the POINT program, which stood for Positive Interventions to Enhance the Performance of Dancers, which we ended up rebranding the manual to be athletes and include all kinds of different sports in there. But I think what the most compelling part of the manual was for dance teachers, and they reported this as well, wasn't really the learning of those 4 specific interventions. It was really the learning how to task analyze a dance movement and break it up into these many different observable components and collect data on those components. And that's something that a dance studio can use really in anything that they're doing, whether they're using ABA or not. They can learn to collect data on their dancers' performances, which is really cool. So for the dissertation, we tried to see we looked at if dance instructors could learn to use these strategies from just a manual versus the behavior analyst coming in and pulling a student out of class and doing it with them kind of thing. And we found that they were able to, but it did require a lot of in-person coaching and training. And, just having a manual and some videos was not sufficient. It required a lot more than that. One of my supervisees, she, who I work with now, she actually did an extension of that study where she made like a software and did more of a virtual training, and she had great results with that as well.
Now we ladders, right? Who do we have recently was talking about that?
I forget her name. Yep.
Well, I'm forgetting right now, but yeah, we've had somebody similar who's doing that with early intervention and parental involvement, so parent-driven ABA using an app, same kind of thing. And yes, there's a coaching session once a week or whatever, but really the parents doing everything and following that app, which we think is fantastic.
I think that's beautiful for dissemination. And it might not work for everybody, but I think it's a nice option for people to have that makes it more accessible.
Yeah.
So not to date you, but that dissertation was how long ago, if you don't mind me asking?
I graduated with my Ph.D. in 2017. So almost a decade ago. Yeah.
Not too long ago.
We don't count the COVID years, but...
But like I said, I got started really early in the field. So I was a behavior therapist when I was 18 years old. So again, that was kind of lucky. I was a BCBA-D when I was 21. So I found what I wanted to do early and ran with it and just kind of evolved from there.
So you did the in-home thing then. You've got the experience.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a little bit? Talk about that a little bit. Like, how did that? What do you remember? How did that transfer over to what you're doing now? Hearing criticisms of the field now that largely stem from the medical model and in-home services. Where do you go? Oh yeah, they're still doing that. They're getting it wrong. Or how does it resonate with you currently?
Yeah. So, I started, I never did DTT in a clinic. I will say that. I never did like any sort of table time. I don't know if they still call it that, but ABA therapy.
I don't know what they call it.
Never in my life. I've never used the BB map. I've never used ABLES. I've learned about it. I learned enough to pass the exam. I've taken CEUs on it. I understand it, but I've never used it before. So I worked, when I first started in the field, I did mostly like on-site, kind of, I don't know what you would call it, but like it worked with clients at, like ADTs. They were at like adult day training centers, group homes, those kinds of things. I worked a lot with adults. And then I also worked in foster care for a brief period of time, and it was so rough. Yeah, I worked in it for, I don't even think I made it a year. It was really
stuff,
rough,
man. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I actually like, again, back to like my kind of health issues. I picked up some stuff when I was working in like bad areas. Like so I just, it wasn't really for me. But I did have that experience working in foster care and then working with adults. I worked with adults for probably like 5 years, so quite a bit, but never did DTT ever.
Right on.
So you something that you're really passionate about. Are you there? Oh, perfect.
Good.
You're good.
You were frozen visually for a second, but you could hear us. That's good.
Something really passionate. You brought up a couple of times is the burnout with BCBAs. It seems like that's something you're really, or women in the field of ABA. I guess not even just BCBAs. Can you speak to that, and also some like specifics of things that maybe resonate with you, or some things that you found that you're very passionate about when it comes to reducing burnout, particularly with women in the business women?
Oh, sorry. I'm just reconnecting. Sorry. Okay. You cut out when you said, brought up the burnout with BCBAs.
No
That's
worries.
Where it cut off.
I think we're good now. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, good.
I was saying it just seems like that's something you're really passionate about, is burnout with women business owners, BCBAs, what have you. So can you speak to some of the things that really resonate with you, maybe some strategies that you found to be effective that you really vibe with? Again, it just seems like something you're really passionate about. So the floor is yours to talk about that.
So I actually have a model that I use in my business coaching, where we work through different areas of things that we've talked about, such as boundaries, regulation, these kinds of, the acronym is BRAVE, but values, embodiment, just all these different areas that we work through. But I think a really big thing with women is just like people pleasing. And I watch male business owners a lot in the way that they run their businesses, and I learn a lot from them. And like, for example, I just a little example, I made a post last week about like women always use like emojis in their communications. They always use like smiley faces and like emojis and explanation points. And back to Miltenberger, he used to joke about that with me too. And like we're kind of conditioned. I feel like that comes from like, it's like these little things that we do that we don't even realize like come from our conditioning. So like we're conditioned to say things with like an emoji or an explanation point, almost as like a please like me still kind of thing when we're giving feedback. And something that I was talking about in my post is like that actually takes away your authority. And there's research on that, and men don't really speak that way, right? Like if a man sends an email or feedback, there's not a smiley face or an emoji. There's not like an LOL when an invoice is attached or whatever. So things of that nature, just little things that we do in our verbal behavior. Like we love to add just to things, saying like, I just whatever, or I just, and that can kind of negate the statement that you're saying, and rather than just saying the statement. So that's a lot of ABA there too, is just, see, I just did it there and I just did it again. Learning about, even ways that we can shape our verbal behavior, or like noticing conditioning that we've had that might make us communicate a certain way, where we can be perceived as less authoritarian or less, maybe a little bit less respect or whatever.
Even confidence, maybe, in terms, like you're saying, like me, as opposed to, hey, this is what I'm about, and take it or leave it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it took so many years. It's something I'm still working on, but it took so many years for me to really be okay with just giving feedback. Did it again. I added just again. Giving feedback, and without all of those superfluous like words attached to it.
My trick has been the word simply, which is now overused, but just and still Simply is my go-to now. It's not Just or Still, which is good, but now I'm overusing Simply. So if you want to take that, go for it.
Thank you.
Simply,
Thank you for that permission. I appreciate it.
I simply do this.
That comes across very dismissive from the other side, because it's like, no, you're making it simple for us. Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that.
It's obvious.
Not all of us went to Stanford. My bad.
Oh, geez. Here we go.
But yeah, there's so many little things that show up. I think I learned a lot too from owning that gym for women. It was frustrating because women would come in and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm getting fit for my wedding," and they'd be taking care of themselves and doing all the things, and then you'd like never see them again after like 3 months.
Oh.
And I talked to like a lot of people that owned women gyms, and they're like, "Yeah, that's just like how women are." And I was like, this is so frustrating because men aren't that way. Like they just take care of themselves. Like they go do the thing, and it's not
or
it's
don't
not like,
or don't.
or don't. But yeah, it's not
And then we own it.
Yeah, like I'm taking care of myself for 3 months so I look good in a picture, kind of thing. So just again, like all this conditioning and the way that we're taught to show up, and we have to look a certain way. And I this could be a 3-hour podcast. I have so many opinions on it, but even things like my dad is my accountant personally and for my business. And sometimes he's awesome. Like the amount of money he sees me spend on things like my hair and nails and things like that. And I say to him, I'm like, listen, there is actual research that if women don't get their hair and nails done and wear makeup to work, they are not taken as seriously and people don't spend as much money with them. And there's real research on that. So much. So even things like that, like it's just wild.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're struggling with resonating with their values because their value was looking good for a wedding picture and your value was more holistic long term.
Yes, Dan.
No,
yes.
no.
See, now we got to get back to the value stuff.
No,
you got to use
judging
ACT.
their value.
I'm
saying that it's sad that this is how we're conditioned from society. Yeah. It's sad that we are made to feel guilty that we can't spend money on our fitness long term or show up to classes every day long term. That's savored for a special event. I just
back to product versus process, one shot versus a lifestyle that's healthy. Yeah,
it's also interesting. Yeah. I mean, this is absolutely extrapolating to greater populations, but at least in my anecdotal experience from my girlfriend and just people in my life, you talk about women and working out. A lot of times they seem to, and my girlfriend's the same way. Like she doesn't like to work out solo at the gym, but like if she can go to a class or something, she would do the boot camps. Mm-hmm. Like those would resonate with her. Where I don't see guys doing as much of like the boot camp stuff. They can tend to work out more solo in a gym. I don't know if that's something that you've seen as well.
Probably because women love community and like, that's just, I think, back to our conditioning. Like we love to be around other women.
Which is all, and it's cool though that you're bringing all of this stuff, you know, being honest with your emotions, and you call it the woo-woo stuff, and it's things like that you wouldn't necessarily see as a traditional business owner. But I think somebody, you talked about your tattoos and things like that, like opening people's minds to what is possible out there. And like you said, you don't have to fit into the traditional mantra of whatever it is. You can be yourself and still be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Woo Woo ABA is going to be the title of this episode. Woo Woo ABA with Dr. Mallory Quinn. Is that the...
Go for it. I love it.
We really appreciate that you've expanded, and that, you know, again, we're really enjoying that, and meeting people that are outside of autism treatment is really bringing ABA to life. Like, this isn't just about the treatment of this one specific condition. This is something that you can do for yourself every day. It should be very accessible, and for whatever reason, and we're guilty of it too. We've made it a little bit unattainable or out of reach sometimes, and we really appreciate that you're bringing it to the masses in that sense. Something that you made me think about earlier that I think is very relevant to what everybody does with ABA if they're working with clients. How do you determine levels? So the idea that somebody comes into your studio, maybe it's an autistic child. The notion that you're going to decide, are they ready for a group lesson versus I need to work with them individually first. Give us a little bit of insight on how that plays out.
We have a bit of a screening process. So we ask about like what their dance experience has been in the past. We do an assessment if necessary, but a lot of times from that screening, we can recommend certain classes for them to trial. And then based on the trial, we inform them from there. But yeah, for all of our levels, we have a very detailed, intricate checklist of like what, and sometimes it's a range, right? Sometimes it's like a range of a skill, but they have to be like within a certain area of all those skills to move up levels. And we set the expectation that they might be in the same level class for many years, things of that nature. Everyone's progress is different, that kind of thing.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak? So we just want to open up the floor for you to talk about your companies. You also brought up your Instagram pages, just where people can find you. Talk about, it's ABASI? Is that?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you talk about where people can find you?
Yeah. The dance studio is ABASI Dance Lab. We have a website. We have an Instagram. Like I said, I don't post too much ABA stuff on there, but we practice a lot at the studio. And then my consulting company, where there is a lot more ABA stuff posted, is ABA Sports Innovations. We've been around since 2016. And then my personal Instagram is Mallory, MALLORY _ABA Dance Doctor. And then we have an online school for behavior analysts, for RBTs who are looking to get information. We have CEUs on there. We have curriculums. We have guided meditations you can use with your clients if you're looking for something a little more woo-woo. All kinds of different things on there.
I bet you if you made a company called Woo Woo ABA, I bet you it would get a lot of eyes.
Woo Woo ABA. We'll have to get permission from Dr. Quinn.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But that website is learn.abasportsinnovations.com. And then my website, if you're looking for information on business coaching and supervision, is abasportsinnovations.com. So I do work, again, with women, BCBAs, looking to open businesses outside of autism. So we primarily focus in health, sports, and fitness, but we have a gamut. Like one person I'm working with now, she's a BCBA who does psychedelic integration coaching.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
You peaked as a... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah. So
I'm going to have to look into that.
Yeah. Outside of the box, different women looking to break out of the mold. And then, I also supervise students. So I have a student rate if you're in school and you're looking for supervision that's outside of the box to learn some of these different things. You can always reach out to me for that.
How do you get 30 hours into a day? Because you do like 8 different things.
My question was, when do you sleep?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how
sleep habits.
I need to learn this.
When do you get sleep time in? And then you get the optic flow in the morning, so we know you're sleeping at some point, but we're not sure when you're fitting that in.
You should know enough about me by now to know I follow the sun. No, I think that when you're not burned out, you can do a lot more.
Well, I would add, the only thing I would add to that is that you're not burned out because you're doing things the way you want to do them, and there's a certain confidence and motivation that comes from that. And I think we're experiencing that currently in working a ton, and then just being like, I find like I feel like I have extra time on my hands. What else can I do? And so much of that comes from following your passion, following your own lead, And so thank you for sharing your story. I think it's chock full of that inspiration and saying, do things your own way. Don't be afraid to break the mold. Go chart new territory. Chart new paths. Be authentic. Dr. Mallory Quinn, we've covered a lot of ground. Anything that we didn't cover, you've given us everywhere people can find you. I hope to go out and find you. We have at least, you just mentioned the women's leadership stuff. We have at least 3 former guests or 3 guests on the tap that we're going to want to connect you with that I think, that you do very well with. But we like to do a quick synopsis here. What are we going to say, Dan? We're going to say accept, commit.
Be authentic,
dance, and
always analyze responsibly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mallory Quinn. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Always analyze responsibly.
ABA on Tap is recorded live and unfiltered. We're done for today. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. See you next time.